In reality, most gun owners are more likely to use that gun to defend your life against another nut job like you who thinks that all white people are Nazis. Hey guys, I'm Joel and happy 4th of July. I wasn't going to record today, but I came across this gem on my feed and I just had to react to it. Check it out.
America is a country full of people who like to talk about their freedom while elbowing their way into yours. My freedom to have 17 guns is more important than your freedom to have one life, because my freedom means you can't take one thing from me, but I can take everything from you.
You see, this is the problem with these people. They think that everyone else thinks like they do. So, in order for one thing to be true, another can't be true. In other words, if some people are allowed to have guns, then they're going to kill me. When in reality, most gun owners are more likely to use that gun to defend your life against another nut job like you who thinks that all white people are Nazis. Let's go on.
You can't make me wear a mask, but I can make you have a baby. Why? Just think of freedoms as playing cards. I'm taking tricks while you're probably turning them. Yes, the freedoms you hold in your hand are precious. That is, until I whip out one of my freedoms, because my freedoms are always trump cards. Well, of course they're called that. My freedom not to take a shot trumps your freedom not to be shot.
Yeah, they had to take a dig at Trump, right? See, people like this lady think that everyone is like them. So because they're the ones that are intolerant and they say, well, I think a 6-year-old child can decide their gender. So then everyone not only has to accept it, but has to support my way of thinking. Most conservatives or people like me in the middle, we just want to live our lives. You know, morally, I'm pro-life, but I vote pro-choice because I don't want the government telling me or anyone else what to do. I just want to live my life and I'll let you live yours. And just because I want certain rights for myself doesn't mean I don't want you to have those rights. They can't fathom somebody just wanting to be left alone and wanting to live their life freely because they always have to be told what to do. They always need guidance from the almighty government to tell them what to do and how to think and how to live their lives. And that's why they think that you and I should also feel that way and act that way. We have to obey. In other words, we're directly threatening them. That's the mentality that leads you to think that words are violence. That's the mentality that came up with microaggressions. These people are ridiculous. And I mean, what else can you expect? You and I, most of us are free thinkers. And unfortunately, we can't expect people who can't think for themselves to understand the way we want to live our lives. Anyway, let's go on.
Not to be shot. In a polite society, I'm speculating here, sacrifices have to be made. Just don't expect me to be the one making them. Speaking of sacrifices, a super trendy freedom right now is religious freedom. It allows everyone to be free to follow my religion.
Who's saying that? I don't see conservatives or independents saying, hey, this is the only way. This is the way you have to live. Obviously, people are going to speak their mind and try to convince others to live the way that they think would most benefit that person. But there's a big difference between trying to convince someone and obligating someone. And because that's the way that they do things, they obviously assume that that's the way everyone else is going to do them.
Say I'm a pharmacist, and I just decided this morning that my deeply held religious beliefs won't allow you to get birth control. That's the fun thing about religious freedom.
That's a right. Every business says we reserve the right to refuse service, right? No shirt, no shoes, no service. The difference here is that a rational person would say, you know what? I'm against that. I don't sell that. Go somewhere else and get it. And the way they would do it, people like this lady would do it. She would say, no, that's wrong. I'm not going to sell that, but she won't let anyone else sell it either. And if anyone else tries to sell it, she's going to want to put them in jail because they're putting everyone else at risk.
You are going to follow my religion, even if I don't. Ugh, children. For example, it doesn't
The arrogance, too, and the condescending manner in which he speaks. Now, she's trying to obviously demonstrate how, in this case, conservatives act, or the way she thinks they act. But most of these people are just projecting. They're projecting what they see in the mirror onto everyone else.
doesn't matter if my religion really bans vaccines because a whole restaurant getting sick
Who banned vaccines? They're the ones that are into banning.
bans vaccines because a whole restaurant getting sick is such a small price to pay for my freedom to say it does.
How about if you don't want to get sick, don't go to a crowded restaurant? They don't want to take any responsibility for themselves.
Jesus may have forgotten to mention homosexuals, but that doesn't mean I can't try to take away their freedom to marry, because Jesus should have mentioned them.
This is all news. We're not keeping homosexual couples from getting married. Personally, I think that, a mother and a father raising children is what's best for society, but I'm not going to tell anyone else how to live. If it's not impacting my life directly, you live your life.
Look, as a conservative Christian, I'd devote more time to following the things Jesus did say if I weren't so gosh darn busy making sure that you follow the things he didn't. Because another thing that totally slipped Jesus's mind is my other favorite obsession: abortion. Fortunately, my religious freedom to pretend Jesus mentioned abortion trumps your constitutional freedom to get one.
There's no constitutional freedom to get an abortion. That's the problem with a lot of these people. They just spew nonsense out of their mouth. They don't know what they're talking about, but they just do it so convincingly, Gavin Newsom, that people believe it. Because unfortunately, most people, and it pains me to say it, most people aren't critical thinkers. They just follow along. They just believe whatever the person on the screen says, or whatever the person in government says.
In Texas, it violates my personal freedom to be required to have a gay wedding cake in my store, but not your personal freedom to be required to have your father's baby in your womb.
So now she's equating not wanting to bake a cake because it goes against your personal beliefs to abortion. And again, it goes back to my example of the pharmacist. The guy, the baker didn't say, no, I'm not going to bake you the cake and I'm going to make sure nobody else bakes it for you either. No, he simply just said, no, you know what? That goes against my religious beliefs and, I'm going to decline this sale. But like her, the people that wanted that cake said, no, you have to make this cake for us. And if you don't know how that went down, the guy lost his business. Unfortunately, he was in a liberal, progressive state. He lost his business. His reputation was really damaged, and all because some immature, stubborn people wanted it their way.
In Texas, it violates my freedom to be asked to wear a mask. You try screaming into an abortion informant hotline while wearing one. Oh. Yes, Texas has a hotline. Not for when a shooter carries his gun into a high school cafeteria.
Yeah, they do. It's 911.
No, but for when a woman drives her car into a Planned Parenthood parking lot. In Texas, COVID is encouraged to reproduce.
COVID is encouraged to reproduce. She's talking about a law in Texas that prohibited abortions after a certain time. I don't think it was at all. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I do know that people could call in and the physician doing the abortion would get in trouble because they're violating the law. But you see, that's the great thing about the powers of each state. Like the way things are in one state, you could go to another state, like my state, California, where they'll pay for you to come down here and they'll pay for your abortion too.
To reproduce. And women are forced to.
You're forced to reproduce. Get out there and open your leg. Oh, that's so silly. It's just, how do people fall for this kind of stuff? And I saw this, I got the original video for this reaction, but this was part of another reaction that somebody did praising this, like it was something insightful, intelligent, when it's the complete opposite.
They make you give birth to children because life, y'all.
Okay, my personal thought. As a father, that baby at conception is a life and it should be protected. But again, I'm completely against the government telling someone what they can or can't do, because you always look at the worst case scenario. And if you say, okay, well, it's gonna, prevent babies from being aborted, in the future, things can be flip, or in other states they're flipped now, where in California, talking about trans kids, if your child wants to transition and you're opposed, the state will just take them away from you. And they can do that for abortion too. They can say, no, you know what, for this reason or that reason, you can't have this baby, you have to get an abortion. It's always better to err on the side of freedom.
They make you give birth to children because life, y'all. Then make it easier to kill them with COVID and gunfire.
Okay, we all know that children were basically immune to at least the symptoms of COVID. My kids, no one in my family got the shot. And we heard about it from the entire family when my wife and I got sick and we didn't vaccinate our kids and we didn't separate ourselves from our kids. And we kept giving them hugs and kisses and everything. My kids are fine because I was informed, because I looked for information outside of the mainstream media. So I knew that children were basically immune to this.
'Cause freedom, y'all. We call ourselves the land of the free. Well, except for those we incarcerate. More than any other country. More than communist China, which has over 4 times our population. More than even authoritarian Russia. Oh, speaking of Putin, my favorite freedom right now is the freedom to ignore election results that don't go my way.
You mean like in 2016 when everyone on her side was saying that Trump was illegitimate and that he was a puppet of Putin and Putin put him in power? Is that what she's talking about? And yeah, I've got my problems with our criminal justice system. I think that there's way too many people locked up for stupid stuff. But I'll still take it over Russia or China, where you'll just disappear. And just because their numbers or their reports say something, they haven't shown to be really forthcoming with actual information. They'll just say, no, that person isn't locked up. They're over there shopping at the wet market.
And you have the freedom to agree with me, or else.
Again, projection. That's just how her side acts.
See, freedom isn't something applicable to the whole, but appropriated by the fraction. Freedom isn't about you getting choices. It's about you choosing to agree with the choices already made for you by your husband, whose choices were made for him by strangers on Twitter.
Again, just with belittling the way anyone else thinks. They think that only they know. Their reputable sources can be proven wrong time and time again. And they'll always make up an excuse for it. They'll always say, well, it was just that one time, or that's the exception. They're usually right 99.9% of the time. And go look up who are the happiest women. Women who have a husband, who have a family, who have children. They're the happiest. According to studies, they're the happiest.
Because exercises of freedom most often lead to acts of conformity.
Exercises of freedom lead to acts of conformity? That's another thing they do. They spew all these big words, thinking that they're gonna seem so intelligent and educated and articulate, but they just show they're stupid.
Freedom. Freedom isn't free. But fortunately, it's always someone else picking up the tab. Glory.
So did you enjoy that nonsense? And this video had, I don't know how many likes and shares. We got a lot of work to do, guys. We'll have a chance. It's not related to this, but let me plug the movie Sound of Freedom with Jim Caviezel. Child trafficking, pedophilia, it's a big problem. And I'm not being sponsored. I wish I was, but I'm not. I just look it up. Sound of Freedom. I'll leave a link below so you can check out the trailer. Guys, thanks for taking the time to view the video. I'll see you on the next one.